How's it going, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the ACC podcast. As always, I'm your host, Steven. Excited to introduce to you today Kyle Reidhead. He is the co-owner of Milk Road, as well as the co-founder of Impact3 Marketing. So, Kyle, thanks so much for being on the show today. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so it is probably the best environment that I have hosted one of these podcasts. ACC podcast is relatively new to the space, and we are hitting all-time highs for Bitcoin. And hopefully, fingers crossed, some of these Bitcoin charts are hitting their bottoms. So we're going to get into charts and all sorts of stuff today for sure. But let's just get a first read from you, Kyle. How are you feeling about the markets today across the board?
Yeah, I mean, things look good. Obviously, it's been a bullish, 48 hours or so, let's say. But we've been sort of calling that we're going to get into this moment for a little while here. We were just kind of waiting for it. There was just a lot of things all coming together that felt like it was time for our sort of next leg higher in Bitcoin and in some of the other assets too. And it's finally playing out. So I think the macro's in our favor for the next little while here. And so is the adoption and the regulation and all the other things that we've been waiting for with crypto. So there's just a lot to talk about, but a lot of good things happening.
Yeah. So before we dive a little bit into kind of your foundations in your past, one more market intro kind of question I have for you is just like, what is your kind of overall feeling and stance on the market right now? Like, depending on where maybe your capital or your interest has been allocated, you're either, sitting at a 2x to, 5x and more if maybe, bought Bitcoin at the bottom. But if you invested in kind of a niche layer one, maybe you're still down 95%. So kind of, wrap us into kind of your journey here, beginning kind of at the forefront here. Like, where do you think you feel the market's at right now? Are we ready for a big move up, or do you think that there still needs some time for things to kind of reevaluate where the fundamentals are? And if at that point you want to go into your very start of kind of where you started your journey, that'd be cool to hear that too.
Yeah. So look, I think we've been in a 2.5 year bull market, although I know a lot of people probably don't feel that way, at least in crypto. We really have. And that bull market has been driven by a few things. One, like from a macro standpoint, financial conditions loosening, liquidity increasing. And now we have Trump, who's kind of changed the administration's changed their whole idea here where they're going to try and run the economy hot. And I can't think of a more bullish time than when they're trying to grow their way out of debt. It means we're going to inflate our currencies, the fiat currency. We're going to focus on growth. We're going to deregulate. Like couldn't be a more bullish time for tech, and obviously crypto is a big part of that. So on a macro backdrop, I'm super excited. I think the reason why there's been such a dispersion in the markets over the last few years is the new capital coming to the space is not retail capital. There's been little spurts, like when Trump took office, and then before that, like when the ETFs came, there was like spurts of retail that came in. But for the most part, it's just been kind of like this mercenary capital that's jumped from the one hot thing to the next thing, and it hasn't gotten bigger. What's really happened is we've started to slowly open up the door to institutions, to big funds, to pension funds, to whoever that may be. And these guys can't necessarily allocate on chain today. They're starting to be able to, but it's very, very slow. What they can allocate to is the public markets, because obviously that's where all their capital already is. And so if you look at what's been available on public markets for the last 2.5 years, it's been basically just Bitcoin via ETFs that came last year, but more importantly through strategy or MicroStrategy for the last 5 years. That's been around since 2020. So it was like the one avenue outside of Coinbase that the public markets, the big amount of money, can actually get exposure to crypto. So that's why Bitcoin's done so well. It's why Coinbase has done so well coming out of this bear market. It was down at like $35 and now it sits at almost $400 today, right? So it's done extremely well. And I think that's because the public capital has been able to actually allocate to it. Obviously, Robinhood has started moving into crypto, so that has done extremely well. Circle was the next IPO. The thing 10x'd in like 2 weeks. This is just a pent-up demand of institutions and funds in the public side that wants to allocate to to crypto, but just can't actually move their capital on chain today. I think that's why we're seeing such a big explosion in Ethereum is you've got these ETH Treasury companies really starting to pick up. And so for me, I'm really looking at what are the public markets saying, what's available on public markets, because that's where all the capital is. And slowly that capital will move more on chain and they'll be able to actually buy and hold digital assets, but it's going to take years for that to really happen. And so I think anyone that's been playing in the trenches of crypto it's been tough over there because you're not getting new capital. You're just that mercenary capital that's moving around. Whereas if you've just bought the big things, the winners, that exist in public markets, you've done very well, and it's been pretty easy ride. So that's thankfully where I've been and paying attention to, and I think that's going to continue. So yeah, that's where I think we're at in the market right now.
Awesome. Love that. Thanks for sharing. And evidently, you've been busy with a lot more than just looking at charts. Let's get into a little bit of where Impact3 came from. And quick question right off the bat here. Impact3 came before Milk Road or vice versa?
Yeah, Impact3 has been around since 2019.
Cool.
We actually weren't even in the crypto space when we launched it.
Oh, no way.
We just worked in the media space. So we worked with a bunch of media companies. We helped them grow, and then we got connected with Bankless in early 2020. And I was a few of us in the company were big into crypto. We just weren't really working with crypto clients. We were just investing and learning and whatnot. But then we got Bankless as a client. We helped them grow through the bull market of 2020, 2021. That kind of gave us a name in the crypto space. And so we started pivoting our company in 2021 to work with mainly crypto companies. Today, we're only with crypto companies, both brands like Bankless, but then also a lot of DeFi protocols, L1s, that kind of stuff. And so we've sort of pivoted our market agency to be fully crypto native. One big part of that was as we were running this agency, we realized there was kind of a gap in the market. A lot of the brands or sort of media companies out there were either very technical or were they didn't really teach to the retail side of things, and they didn't teach the investing side of things so much. They were either like so far in the trenches or very, very technical. It was hard to understand. And so we actually launched a company called Web3 Academy, which was a smaller version of Milk Road. And then we worked with Milk Road with our agency, and we ended up acquiring Milk Road and kind of bridging in our old media company into Milk Road. And we've been running that now for almost 2 years. And so now we have both Impact3 on the agency side and helping with marketing and PR. And then we're running Milk Road, which, as you said, has a bunch of newsletters. We've got podcasts and a research service to help retail sort of navigate these markets.
Oh man, that's awesome. And yeah, I mean, so kind of this first kind of series that ACC is putting out, we're kind of labeling as founders stories. And some questions that kind of come up around that are almost interesting to observe in your own story, how you started and how almost like you had ways to include education in something because you saw that they were a little bit too embedded in the technical side of things, weren't really teaching too much. So then came like Milk Road, and now two legs have now sprung from Milk Road Macro and Milk Road Degen. So take a minute and explain what those two things are, and just kind of help our viewers kind of delineate between the Milk Road head and then Macro and then Degen. Help us kind of understand the different legs there.
Yeah, so we've had Milk Road Daily, which is the daily newsletter and a daily podcast for years, and it's grown and done really well. And it focuses more on, let's say, the fundamental sides of crypto and investing in crypto. But we found if we went too far into like the degen side, our audience didn't love it. Some of them did, but most did not. And we also started talking about macro because that really matters when you're investing in anything, whether it's crypto or tech stocks or gold or anything else. And so we covered a lot of the macro side too. But again, the audience liked it, but not all of them loved it. And so we thought, you know what? Why don't we niche out and let's like give a specific newsletter and a specific podcast to those niches because they're big enough at this point. And so we launched Milk Road Degen and Milk Road Macro both last month, and now they both have their own newsletter. They both have their own podcast, and it allows us to sort of niche out in those areas, go deeper into those areas rather than kind of surface level of macro, surface level of Degen. We can go all in on both of those, and if you don't want to hear that stuff, you can stick to just the Milk Road Daily, which has been great. And so it allows us to just go deeper into it. But the main sort of like synergy between all three of them is our whole goal is like, let's keep it simple, right? There's a lot of people out there talking about macro, but it's so complex. And if you're not a finance guy who went to school for this, like you have no idea what a lot of these guys are saying. And so our whole goal with Milk Road Macro is the same thing we've done with crypto, which is let's take the technicalities out of it. Let's take the complexities out of it. And let's keep it simple so the average person can understand it and actually take action based off of it. And same with the degen stuff. There's a lot of weird things going on in that space, and we try to like separate the noise out and let people know like what's really happening and again, explain it in a simple way.
That's really cool. And anytime, there's kind of opportunity there to kind of give people a choice, which is kind of hinting at what we're going to get into with each ETH treasury companies, but giving people that choice, like, do you want to learn about more kind of degenerative things? Do you want to kind of just take a step back and just understand this whole side of finance to begin with? Because, yeah, I mean, coming from the United States here, it's always bothered me that just normal financial literacy is not taught in the regular,
Right.
kindergarten through 12th grade. And then here we are, we've got this cryptocurrency idea, and it does such a great job of explaining financial systems and ownership of assets, and even gives people a chance to invest super easily. But there's still a pretty big gap there of not just like understanding some of the jargon and different vocabulary, but then at the end of the day, you're owning your own assets, and you really need to be careful about some of those ways that you perform actions on chain and such. So before we get going and really start to pop off into some of these hot topics, such as those ETH treasury companies, which I know have been hot on the Milk Road Daily show I've been watching. So give us a little bit of your past. Where did you kind of get your start in Web3? When did crypto first come on your horizon?
Yeah, so I have an interesting story. My past has nothing to do with finance at all, not even tech. I actually took kinesiology in school, so
Nice.
which is the science of the human body. And but I helped kind of create different startups in the creator world. So we built courses for like concussion management for doctors and physiotherapists, and so I learned kind of sales and marketing from that. I did some other health stuff, health coaching, all that kind of stuff. But really, all that taught me how to like run a business and how to do media, how to create
Cool.
content. And so that's where our marketing agency came from. But the reason we started the marketing agency is I used to have my own health business, and it was all run through Facebook. And I had these like huge Facebook groups, so I was bringing a lot of clients from, and it was working great. And then one day I woke up and my Facebook account was deleted,
Oh
just
man.
completely gone. And still today it's gone. And it's like the one I had from when I was a kid, where all my like pictures are and stuff. And I still don't know why. And I was like, this is absolutely crazy. And so around that same time, I was also like reading economics books and studying finance because I was investing a lot. And a buddy of mine, when I was in Mexico, I was nomadic for about 5 years during this time. He worked at Exodus, which is a big wallet in crypto. And he taught me. He told me where he worked, and I was like, "Hey, let's go for dinner. I want to hear about what you're doing." He taught me everything, well, not everything, but as much as he could about Bitcoin and Ethereum over dinner. And I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy!" And as I started, so I really understood Bitcoin, and I started buying into that. And I was like, I need to figure out this Ethereum thing. And so when I started diving down the rabbit hole, which was actually using Bankless, I realized it was like, whoa, the problem that I had with my previous company with Facebook banning me, I was like, this is preventable with something like Ethereum, right? Blockchain can prevent this. You get to own your data, own your accounts, own your followers, etc. And so this whole idea, like I already understood the money side of it with Bitcoin, but then my eyes opened to this whole idea of Web3 and how everything can actually come on blockchain. It's not just replacing the financial system, it's actually so much
Yeah.
more. And then I just like became absolutely obsessed. And that's when we started pivoting our company and moving and going all into the space, because it was just all I could think about. Because I had seen it from like obviously the financial side. If you invest or anything, you can wrap your heads around that pretty quickly. It's the other stuff which is harder unless you've experienced something. And being from Canada, the US, like you don't really experience these kind of things that often. I just happened to have this like banning from Facebook where I was like, oh, okay, these guys got some power. And so kind of went all in from there. So that's what got me into the space.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that. And I think that's the second time you touched on the many different use cases, really, of just Web3 altogether. And
Right.
it's an interesting concept that I've kind of just personally paid attention to over the years, like something like oil, it's like it's very easy to see the product market fit for that. But bring something like that's as deep and understanding takes a much longer time, like cryptocurrency, and then apply it to all these different industries, just how disruptive cryptocurrency is, digital assets are. And we talked about earlier how this mercenary capital over the past few years has really just been jumping here and jumping there, pulling out the yield and such. And I personally think, and I think positively speaking here, just trying to manifest a bull market, but just I think that there is a season emerging here where rather than one thing kind of popping off and then the other thing popping off and people kind of jumping ship to one thing or another. I genuinely feel as though I think as well, roping it into the ETH treasuries, that many more people are really going to come to understand what the heck digital currency is, what the heck smart contracts are, how they can be used. And I think that it's just going to be clear that, like, no, this really isn't just disrupting this industry or that industry, but it is just disruptive tech, and it's a brand new way
Yeah.
to do things. And like, that's crazy to hear about your Facebook account. You were running your business out of it, completely got shut down. So I guess, given that this is founder stories, I mean, like, how did you pivot from there? What was your next step after your business potentially just kind of took an L there?
Yeah, it was a weird one. I was living in Bali at the time, and so luckily, like my expenses were next to nothing, and so wasn't an immediate shock, although I obviously was like, "Whoa, what just happened?" Thankfully, I had the skills that I learned from that I knew were transferable to other companies, and so like immediately I was like, "Oh, I can just call up some buddies that run other companies, and I can go and build what I built for myself for them." So like I had the next kind of like the idea. It took maybe a week for me to figure that out and, be in my sorrows for a little bit of like, what am I going to do? And so that kind of worked. I just kept pushing along, right? Like kept trying. As a result of that, I ended up working with a client, a company I used to work for, building out what I did for myself for them. And then someone else heard about that. And so that got me in conversation with them. And that's now where I started my company. My co-founder, Jay, he had heard about it. And so we went for a lunch when we were in Bali, and that's when we started the company. So like, I think that the key is like, if you get knocked down, you just got to get right back up, which is what
Absolutely.
I did, thankfully. And that it wasn't long after, like the timing was crazy that it got shut down. And I feel like it was like less than a month later, and I was already starting a new company. So sometimes timing just works, but like you got to give yourself those opportunities. Like, yes, it was lucky, but like that luck wouldn't have came if I didn't just go and keep building and keep getting up and keep trying. So it's just the grind, right? That's what it is when you're a founder.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's two words that come to mind. There is resistance and resilience. And if there's one thing I believe makes a great founder, is somebody who's extremely resilient, because it is not a
100%.
question of whether or not resistance will come. It's just a matter of when and how it will present itself, and then how you will pivot. And I think that there are two types of people in this world, to simplify it: the people who get back up after getting knocked down, and the people who, maybe quit. Hopefully they don't quit altogether. Hopefully they just see this as a redirection of where they're supposed to be. And I think that, if anything, that paints a picture of cryptocurrency and how it seems like resistance has been met in lots of different ways. How do we get this to a broader audience? And really, just touching on what I just said, it's disruptive of so many industries. And it's like, all right, that door didn't quite work. Let's try here. Let's try there. And then in comes, Michael Saylor to just bust the door down, send Bitcoin to what, $118,000 as it is today. And it's just step, I would say. It's a big step. And I'm bullish. I'm hugely positive the concept that Satoshi and Bitcoin is really pushing for with Bitcoin. But of course, bringing smart contracts and a huge push for decentralized finance. I think that is where there's great amount of opportunity and great amount of power, really, to control our own assets and to start doing something a little bit more with our money, rather than just offloading it to banks or investors and having them kind of decide. Having opportunities that DeFi provides, really cool. So let's dive right into this concept of DeFi. Hopefully maybe a DeFi Summer 2.0 is what we're in the midst of here. So what do you think? Do you think public markets are finally starting to understand DeFi? Where do you think we're at in terms of where we came from in 2020?
Um, I think it's slowly happening. I think public markets is just wrapping their head around Bitcoin, and so I don't think that they fully have wrapped their head around DeFi just yet. But I think it's coming, and I think the ETH Treasury companies are going to be sort of that the big education that we needed to get them to understand it. The good thing about DeFi, I would say, that's happened over the last few years. You talked about all the different use cases in crypto. Most of them haven't worked out yet. And like you said, they just need to be resilient. We need to keep pushing through. But the obvious thing that is working, and it's the thing that we started with in crypto, which is finance, right? It's upgrading the financial system, as Coinbase calls it. And we've been trying to do that for, whatever it's been, 15 years now or something, when Bitcoin started. And I think we're as you said, really knocking through the doors there. And so that is happening. And I think the world is starting to kind of wrap their heads around that. Stable coins is really beginning to take off. Obviously, Bitcoin's taken off. It's now kind of the center of the world, as it's a strategic reserve asset in the US. And so like those things are all happening. And I think what's happening now is public companies are just beginning, and funds and all that are just beginning to understand Ethereum and smart contracts, and then eventually DeFi, right? It's like same with my path into crypto. And I'm sure most people listening, it was like, first you understood Bitcoin, then you started to wrap your head around Ethereum. Then it was like all the use cases on Ethereum and all the different tokens. It's like the public markets are about to do the exact same thing. So they've had Bitcoin and Michael Saylor screaming at them for 4 or 5 years. Now we're about to get that with Ethereum, and it comes at a good time for DeFi specifically, because DeFi has been around since the early days. They were the first apps that launched on Ethereum, and they've found product market fit. You've got Sky, you've got Aave, you've got all these that are growing their TVL. They've got real revenues, and they're generating a lot of revenues. Most of them are very profitable. Sky, I think, is on pace for like 111 million annualized revenue this year. So like that's a massive thing. And that company's only been around for, 5-6 years. So DAO, it's not really a company, but so it's like, we've got real products and real things to show the world in DeFi. You don't really have that for much else in crypto. Yes, there's DPIN, there's other things, but they're all still so early that like most of the big funds and most of TradFi, they don't really care about that much. They're like, we'll take Bitcoin, and that's kind of it. But I think we're at that point now where we were already saying the DeFi renaissance is coming, because again, we've got so many battle tested DeFi protocols that have found product market fit. But I think the biggest unlock we've had in a long time is these ETH Treasury companies. So the same playbook that Michael Saylor just did for Bitcoin over the last 5 years, he started doing that in 2020. We've now got Joe Lubin, Tom Lee, and a bunch of others launching these companies and going to do the same thing for ETH. But what's interesting with these guys is not only they're going to buy ETH and just hold it on their balance sheet like what Strategy is doing, they're going to go and put that in DeFi. They're already beginning to stake. They're starting to restake. Some of them are using Aave. And so now you're going to have these earning reports every quarter where they're going to just be teaching the public markets all about DeFi. And I think that's just like the coolest thing I've heard of in a long time, because we haven't been able to get in through to these guys just yet and let the big capital know and understand about what we're building. And I think finally we're going to go, hey guys, check out what we've built over the last 10 years. We're cooking over here. You guys should be in this stuff. And so I think that's what we're about to play out over the next 12 months. And I think it's going to be really exciting.
Yeah. Hopefully the 12 months leads and lends itself to a much longer season of where hopefully the market can really just step away from, is my portfolio in the green or in the red, or what are the markets looking like today? But just not that I'm looking for a big, huge, euphoric, dopamine-filled bull run where everybody's winning, but just we find a place in the market where it's level-headed, and that might lend itself to more sustainable prices. But if anything has showed us over the years, volatility is the best friend of these crypto markets. So yeah, I mean, like, how do you think the traditional investors that will be learning about DeFi through these Ethereum treasury companies? I guess a question that I have for you after I watched some of Milk Road Daily this past week, not only are there 5 to 6, maybe even more today, companies that are coming out with plans or already have bought Ethereum, but I guess just like, how come this gives an opportunity for public markets to obtain Ethereum, and how is that kind of risk profile any different from any of these people just buying ETH as is? Like, how come they're able to, through these ETH treasury companies, like still gain exposure to ETH, but before it wasn't according to their risk profile or whatever their kind of investment broker is kind of offering?
I think the thing to understand about the way the world works today is 99% of the world's capital is not allowed to buy digital assets or hold digital assets, right? And I mean, like, actually buy the digital asset and custody it themselves. They're just not allowed to do it. And I know that's changing, right? Obviously, Trump and the administration there is trying to change the laws here in the US, but they're not changed yet. And other countries, it's different, right? It depends on where you are. It is different. But for the most part, the big pension funds, the endowments, institutions, a lot of them are not allowed to actually buy and hold this stuff. And so they've been held back, even though they want to, and many of them have been learning about it for years. They just really haven't been able to, or just like either regulation wise have been able to, or they have specific risk profiles where like they can't do it because it doesn't fit what their risk is. It's too volatile. Maybe they can only hold bonds in their fund. It depends. There's many different rules and things in that the TradFi world works in. And I think a lot of the retail people, the crypto people, they don't really quite grasp that. They're like, why not just open up an account and buy this stuff? And it's like, well, we can't, right? We got to get a lot of things passed. We got to get a lot of OKs. We got to have a lot of board meetings, all this kind of stuff. So it's a slow process. And I think even if we get the market structure bill, the stablecoin bill, like coming over the next few months here in the US, it's still going to take a while for them to come out. And so what Sailor enabled for a lot of them is, hey, you might not be able to hold the underlying digital asset, but you can hold a stock on the NASDAQ. And that's why they launched Strategy. It's like, hey, I know you all want exposure to crypto and to Bitcoin. Well, do it here where you guys already are. We'll meet you where your capital already is, where your funds already are, rather than trying to get you to come around and get on chain, right? Of course, we'd love everyone to be on chain. It's just the reality is that's not going to happen yet. And that's going to be a slow thing over time, right? And so I think what we're seeing here is a big unlock. This is one of the reasons why I think Bitcoin's outperformed ETH so much over the last 3 years is because funds could access Bitcoin, but they couldn't really access ETH. Now we have the ETFs that have came last year in May for Ethereum, which is great. And yes, they could buy that too, and they could access that. But again, most of them just got approvals on Bitcoin. So it takes a while for them to get approvals on ETH. The other thing is Gary Gensler being in place over the last 4 years. He basically was saying that ETH is security and it's not okay to hold it, or just wasn't telling us what we could do. So a lot of them just were like, we'll wait until we get more clarity. So Gary Gensler leaving in January was, I think, one of the biggest things ever for ETH, because that unlocked and opened the door for all these treasury companies to come in, right? It's also why, since he's been gone, you've seen the Ethereum ETF inflows pick up significantly, right? All of a sudden, we're getting the green light for a lot of these funds and a lot of the world's capital saying, hey, it's okay. You're not going to go to jail if you buy ETH, whether it's the digital asset or on public markets. And so we're still not fully there. A lot of them still don't fully get it. They don't realize that it's okay now or what this thing really is. And so ETFs do a good job of going around educating, but ETFs can't stake. They can't do anything in DeFi. So there's only so much they can teach. And the real benefit of Ethereum, as we all know, is its functionalities, the smart contracts, doing things with ETH, right? That's the beauty of this asset, is you can stake it, you can restake it, you can lend it, you can do whatever else, right? And so the ETFs haven't been able to go and educate investors on that yet. They haven't been able to go to funds and teach about that. They've just said you can buy this thing. Yeah. But for most people, it's like, if I can just buy it and hold it, why don't I just do that with Bitcoin? Why would I do that with ETH? What's great about these treasury companies, they don't have the same rules as the ETFs, so they can front run them, and they can already use DeFi. And so they can go to investors and say, look, I got this asset. It's just like Bitcoin, except I can stake it, I can restake it, I can lend it, and I can do all these things, and I can get a yield of 4 to, I don't know, some of them are promising like 18%. And so they can do so much more, and that excites TradFi. And so I think these treasury companies coming in, it's going to do a lot just to educate the world. And when I say the world, I mean Wall Street and TradFi, about what we've built here on Ethereum and what's possible. And I think that's super exciting. And so again, a lot of that capital that can't come on chain yet, at least it can go and give the capital to these treasury companies, and then they can take that capital and put it on chain and do things with it. So that's the exciting thing.
Yeah, definitely very exciting there. So you have said several times just the idea of teaching that, education and such. What do you think, just to put you like on the spot, what is more important, 1 or a 0 here? Understanding the fundamental value of cryptocurrency, or understanding how to use it? Does that make sense?
Which one is more important?
Yeah.
I would say it depends on the person.
Mm-hmm.
I think we want to teach both. But I don't know that, like, here's the thing. My mom's never going to use DeFi. She's never going to get a MetaMask wallet and use DeFi. So does she care how to use it? Like, absolutely not. Right. So I don't really care for her to learn how to use DeFi. Do I want her to have some exposure to it? Absolutely. I think that could be great. Do I want her to have some way where it's not in a bank or somewhere else, just in case, I don't know, something ever happened in Canada? Like, of course. But I would just do that on her behalf. In fact, I do. I hold it on my ledger for her on my behalf. But do I need to teach her that? Like, no, not really. And so I don't know. I think it depends on the person. There are a lot of people like in the tech world where they need to know how to use it. A lot of TradFi people who are going to move and learn into this, they should know how to use it. And then there are many who also should understand the ethos, because that's one of the reasons why it has value. So I just think it depends on who you're talking to.
Yeah, just a fun little question there. It's always fun to be like, "Oh, what do you think about all these things?" But if you had to choose one, I just wanted to see what you had to say there. But yeah, it was funny earlier. You were talking about kind of like the normal kind of like onboarding, like, "Oh, first people, learn about Bitcoin and then Ethereum." But it's like, wait, there's a step before any of that where they just push the buy button. That's how it was for
Right,
me.
right.
Back in 2017, my friend showed me Coinbase, bought some Bitcoin, some Litecoin, some Ethereum, the classic three that were on Coinbase there, and immediately had this sinking feeling in my stomach that I had literally just, basically just given my money away. And the rest is history for me in that regard. But yeah, I thought that was just kind of funny there. It's like, no, like before you learn, first you just have to throw your money at something, and you try to hope
It
for the
helps.
best. So anyway, I was curious, just to make it clear, where would you say, obviously, talking about Ethereum and such, it sounds like you have a pretty big, just overall interest, not having to do with portfolio allocations at all, but just like, what do you think are your main, I don't want to say like winning horses, but like, what are the main things that are drawing your attention in this space? Is it, small cap layer ones that you're secretly accumulating, or are you just kind of really focused on the main Bitcoin and Ethereum narratives?
Yeah, I don't do a lot of the small cap stuff. I'm really fundamental driven, so I'm looking for who's building a real product here,
Yeah.
that's going to be around 10 years from now. Who's trying to innovate and make a difference in this space, and who's trying to generate real revenues and actually make their token or their asset actually worth something, right? I think 95% of crypto is complete bullshit. I would say like 60% of it is just scams or lazy founders that don't care, that we're just trying to make money. Maybe the other 35% of it is just they're not far enough along yet where it's actually like a useful thing to invest in. They're still just too early stage. They probably shouldn't even have a liquid token at this stage. It's just that's what crypto people did back in the day.
Hmm.
And then the other 5% or less probably is like, okay, these are real products. They have a token that actually makes sense, or some sort of version of equity that makes sense. It should be liquid, and it's actually interesting to me. And so right now, the focus of that mainly is like Bitcoin and ETH are the two big ones I look at in Solana.
Yeah.
Those are the three ecosystems that I think have kind of crossed the chasm. They have their network effects, they have their established communities, they're building real ecosystems. Like they're doing net new things every day, and they're exciting. So like most of my attention is in those three ecosystems, and then a lot of my focus remains in DeFi because I just think the the next big thing in crypto is going to be finance, and I think that's the industry we're gonna impact the most for the next few years here. It's stable coins, it's lending, it's borrowing, it's that kind of stuff. And so most of my focus remains in the DeFi space. I still love what's going on with DePIN and AI and all these kind of things. I just think on the crypto side of things, those things are just still very, very early, and there's just a lot of work and things that need to be proven over there before I can say like, yeah, those are legit and they're going to be a real thing. The other thing, I honestly, I know not a lot of people in crypto love this, but like Coinbase and Robinhood, I love these businesses. I think they're doing the most to really push crypto forward. Even though they're a centralized company, I'm okay with that. Not everything needs to be a DAO, and in fact, most things, if they are a DAO, I think that's a terrible idea. I think starting a business as a DAO is a really bad idea. I think you need someone to like be the visionary of a company. It's fucking
Yeah.
so hard to build a company, and I don't think people get that. And crypto Twitter is like, everything needs to be a DAO, everything needs to be this. I'm like, you guys have never ran a company. You can't just have 20 people who have no leadership just like try to figure it out. It doesn't work that way. You need someone who, as we talked about, has resilience and has a vision. And so like Brian Armstrong over at Coinbase and Vlad over at Robinhood, like these guys are grinding it out every day. They've been doing it for 20 years, 15 years. And they're really pushing it forward and showing the world how to use crypto, and how to push that into public markets and into the average person. So I love what they're doing over there, and I continue to support them. So yeah, I mean, I think the blending of TradFi and crypto is really big here. The blending of like the tech world and crypto is really big here, and so I'm kind of paying attention a lot to that.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, across the board, it seems like, especially kind of with kind of a meme token craze we saw kind of over the past year or so, lots of kind of rug pulls, and even, the new, president in the United States getting his, allocation over there. There's, as always, lots of narratives to get distracted by. But in general, like, I mean, I can't really say what has been the cause for, or even if you would agree with me, the ETH has been a little bit quiet, and why that why that narrative might flip soon, maybe according to these ETH treasury companies, either buying that supply, catching headlines with price increases perhaps, or again just what we were talking about, how many more people will simply just be able to learn more about Ethereum and its use cases, because it's coming up in these quarterly reports, and people are saying, hey, we're generating yield through these ways. So I guess just broadly speaking, do you think that Ethereum hasn't necessarily captured a cultural moment lately for any particular reason? And do you think that that is soon to change?
Yeah, look, I think what happened with Ethereum over the last few years was Gary Gensler really held Ethereum back from being what it was meant to be, right? It wasn't just that ETH was an asset that was kind of under scrutiny. It was all the assets on Ethereum were under scrutiny. And so, like, as I said, 95% of assets that exist in crypto, which most of them are on Ethereum, are kind of dog shit. And the reason is they couldn't do token buybacks. They couldn't do certain things like turn on the fee switches, et cetera, because if they did, they would have went to jail, right? Which is crazy, but that's how the world was until 5 months ago, right? So I think Ethereum has been suppressed and held back. Now, other chains have obviously been able to steal the spotlight during that time. And that's because when you have an asset like Solana, for example, which was worth like $2 billion, 2 years ago, and all of a sudden has skyrocketed up to close to 100 billion. They didn't need institutions to get it that far. We didn't need the green light from Gary Gensler to go that far. They just needed to build some stuff and do some things for retail, right? And it's easy for retail to take an asset from 2 to 50 or 2 to 100 billion. And so like when price moves, narrative goes along with it, right?
Mhm.
So that's why like things like Solana, Hyperliquid, these things have been able to catch the sort of that narrative. Whereas ETH hasn't. It's already a $300 billion asset. Retail wasn't going to move that thing much more. And so we needed to get the green light or get Gary the heck out of here so that we could start to onboard. Like Ethereum has been ready for prime time. It's been ready for the big dogs, right?
Yeah,
We don't need little one-off people using it anymore. That's not what this thing was built for. This thing is mass decentralization. It is meant for the billions of dollars to be on there, and the billions of dollars come from the big dogs. And so now we're finally there, right? Gary gone. You got Robinhood launching on Ethereum. You've got BlackRock launching Biddle. You've got demand in the ETFs. You've got all these treasury companies. You've got so much happening now on Ethereum since Gary's been out. And so I think just naturally that narrative was going to come back because it was just being suppressed. So
totally.
I think that's all it was. And I think ETH is about to have a really big moment here. Not just on price. I just think like Robinhood coming on and building an L2 on Ethereum is a massive signal. Like we've had so many people shitting on the L2, sorry to swear, but like people have just been like, the L2 framework has just been shit on so much by like Solana and all these other L1s. And it's like, guys, this is the move. This has been what they're building is working. It's just, we haven't really been able to see it flourish. And I think we're finally at a place where we can. So I'm really excited to see that happen.
Yeah, totally. And that was, in fact, my next question is, what do you think the L2s are going to play? What role will L2s play in the ETH narrative going forward?
Well, I think if you look at what's been happening, and you can see it with Coinbase, you can see it with Robinhood, you see it with OKX, Crypto.com, basically anyone that is doing anything with crypto in the centralized world, they want to own their own block space, right? But they don't want to own their own blockchain. They don't want to like have to find all the validators and like build what Ethereum has done. That's really, really, really hard to do, right?
Yeah.
There's not a lot of blockchains that are going to be able to do what Ethereum has done. Like Ethereum's got whatever it is now, thousands of validators. I think it's hundreds of thousands of validators. Like that's very hard to do. And so Coinbase would have been, if anyone could do it, it could have been Coinbase, but they didn't even decide to do that. So they said, hey, let's just use Ethereum security, but still own our own block space, right? And it allows them to do so much more. They can generate revenue. They could give fees for free for all their users. They can do different things by owning their block space. And I think that's what every company's going to do. So I think that's why I was calling Robinhood was going to launch an L2. They did. I think we're going to see a bunch of these. The banks will launch L2s. I think other fintechs will launch L2s. And I think you'll even start to see like just tech companies launch L2s, because I see layer twos or blockchains, basically just like another database, except it's decentralized, right? And you can do things like move financial assets around in it, where you can do that in a normal database. And so I think that's going to be the route that a lot of companies are going to take. Coinbase was first, Robinhood's kind of the next big one, and I think this is just going to continue moving forward. So I'm excited for the L2 space. I think there'll be a few L1s that will still make it. They'll be kind of like app specific, like Hyperliquid, but I think like the generalized block space, that's going to be tough to make it anymore. You've already got Ethereum, Base, and Solana that have kind of won that. And so I don't think there's going to be much more there. It's going to be more like app specific, whether it's one company launching it or someone launching a new app.
Totally. Yeah. And quick shout out to ACC Spaces. We had you on the show this past week. Thanks again for your time there. And just this conversation segment here just reminded me of my question to you during that conversation about which kind of tokens or projects kind of deserve to be in the top 10. And you said something about how it's kind of getting better. It's funny because I know you were referring to the top 10 because I went on CoinMarketCap and I remember back in 2017, I can't quite remember how many cryptocurrencies there were, but it was something I could wrap my head around. Maybe it had to have been 10,000 or something like that. But like I looked on it after that conversation, and like there's literally 19 million cryptocurrencies on CoinMarketCap, and like that's just like I don't know. I mean, I'll turn it into a question for you. Is that a facepalm moment, or is that proof of concept?
I think it's proof of concept, and I think
Yeah.
that's going to only continue. I think we're going to get more and more and more because one of the unlocks of blockchains is that you can tokenize things,
Yeah.
right? And so what are meme coins? It's tokenized culture, right? Whether people agree with that or not, it doesn't really matter. It's a thing and it's going to remain a thing. And I think, so there's going to be use cases with that. What are stable coins? It's tokenized dollars, right? And we're going to tokenize every dollar, every fiat currency, they're going to get tokenized. Every stock is going to be tokenized, right? That's already happening. Robinhood, Kraken, Gemini, they're all doing that. And so I think everything is going to be tokenized because when you tokenize something, when you put it on a blockchain, it moves faster, it moves cheaper, and there's no borders, right? And so everything that is anything to do with value should be on a blockchain because it's just a better place to put it than in a centralized database where it has borders, it has extra costs, it has all these different things. And in most cases, it doesn't have any value when it's in a centralized database. So I think we're going to see everything get tokenized. Every company, every dollar, every piece of art, every whatever it is, it's going to take time. Obviously, we'll start with just dollars and maybe stocks, but I think everything's going to end up being tokenized. So I think we'll see whatever billions and billions and billions of tokens in the future.
Totally. And man, I mean, just to touch on the fundamental value there, like, I think it's just so freaking cool that, like, literally, like, if you have a crypto, or NFT or any representation in your wallet, like, it is value, period. You open up your bank and it's like, truthfully, like, yes, it represents value, but it's a number on a screen. The value is out of your control, but like it's just like it's so cool that, like, literally, like, even if your token went to 0.000001, like, it's still value, it's still yours. And yeah, sure, maybe you can't swap it for anything more than a couple cents, but there's still something just like so unique and so, I mean, magical and really like inspiring, not to get too romantic here. But touching on the whole idea of tokenization and everything definitely is a great segue over to the discussion around regulation, the pending Clarity Act, and just kind of opening the top off of that for you. Do you think that founders overall are too optimistic about regulation right now?
No, I mean, I think our industry, like if you've been a founder in crypto over the last 5 years, it's been absolute hell if you lived in the US. Most of them had to leave the US. Most of them, if they did something really good, they end up getting a Wells notice and have spent millions and millions of dollars trying to fight the SEC. And so, or just not even be able to start a company, right? And so I think regulation is very much welcomed from the real builders in this space. I know crypto Twitter is like, nah, we don't want to get rules from the law and blah, blah, blah. Again, these are the people that don't build and they don't know what they're doing. It's like, if you're a builder in the space, all you want is regulation because you just want to know, what can you do? What am I allowed to do? Like, I've got ideas. I can build something really cool here, but like, I'm afraid I'm going to go to jail, And so I've got to move my family and go live in Dubai or something because I'm afraid to go to jail just to create this cool product. And so it's been unfair and it's been it's been a sad thing for the last 5 years. And so I think getting Gary Gensler out, getting the Trump administration in has been an exciting thing for the crypto space. And I think getting this regulation through is just it's a really big deal. And I think it's going to bring a lot of founders back from other countries back into the US, which is pretty cool because they can get back in Silicon Valley, they can get in New York where the financial hub is. And so I think it's a good thing for the space, a good thing for the founders and the innovators in the space. And it also will allow a lot of there's a lot of smart people in, let's say, AI or in other tech companies that just didn't come into crypto as a result of this. And so it'll allow them to come back in, right? And actually make the move over to crypto. So I think it's a really exciting thing to have it. Now, hopefully it becomes good regulation, right? And not something that we don't like. But I think there's enough smart people in the administration that are very pro crypto and pro capitalism, and I think they're going to do the right thing. Will they nail it and get everything right first try? Absolutely not, right? Like, of course they're not going to. No bill is ever that way in anything, but I think we'll get a good start here, and then we can work to improve it over time. And so I'm really excited for it, and I think we're going to get it quite soon here. And so I think the next few months we'll have a lot more clarity of what we can actually build in the US, which is exciting. Hopefully other countries will follow suit. Canada, I'm sure will follow the US. That's where I'm from.
Yeah.
The UK needs to pick it up because they've been kind of slow. And yeah, a bunch of other countries need to pick it up as well.
Yeah. And I mean, you literally used the word clarity, I think unintentionally there. And I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
just
yeah.
like the huge nail to hit on the head there is exactly what you said. Like, maybe this isn't the greatest analogy, but it's like imagine a world where there are no stop lines, no stoplights, no speed limits. There's not even regulation over what, we got rockets flying down the street, who knows what. But it's like, hey, I'm not even gonna get into my car. I'm not even gonna buy a car because there are no
Right,
rules. Like that's just like asking for trouble. So
right.
bringing it back down to the founder space, back down to earth here, it just makes total sense. Like we have good ideas. We don't want to go to jail. We don't want to move out of the
Yeah,
country. Like
right,
tell us what we can do and what we can't do so that we can work with you, right? Because
right.
like work, being a function of physics, really, it's like let's make something happen here. We've got some energy and we want to put something out there that's going to create new industries, new opportunities for people. And altogether, like, yeah, 100% providing clarity, I don't think is something to ever turn away from. But I guess following that up, like, do you think that there are any parts of the Clarity Act that could backfire in the long run?
Um, yeah, it's a good question. I don't know that I know enough about the Clarity Act to say anything specific, but I'm sure there are going to be things that do backfire. Again, this is just like being rational. This is kind of just how bills typically work. So I'm sure there will be. We're not going to get it right away, and that's, I think, okay, as long as they're open to continuing to improve it. I think the good thing is that I think America's starting to realize, or countries anyway, are starting to realize like this is happening with or without them, right? So we don't really care. Like again, US, you want to ban it, that's fine. Well, like everyone just moved and went elsewhere.
Yeah,
Like it doesn't matter that much. We live in a very like nomadic, remote world. Like we can just move.
for sure.
It's not like the olden days where like if you ban it, like I'm like screwed because I can't leave the country. So I think countries they understand that. They understand that if we really are building a new financial system here on top of blockchains, like they're going to want a piece of that. They want
Yeah.
the tax revenues, so they want companies to be in the U.S., not out of the U.S. So I think they're going to be as friendly as they can. I also think they see the benefit of like stablecoins is a huge thing for the U.S. dollar. So I
Totally.
think the administration obviously wraps their head around that. So I think they're starting to get it, and I think over time we'll just have to keep kind of going back and forth with it. So I'm not overly concerned. I expect there to be issues like anything, even like your traffic example. You needed to put in, traffic lights and stop signs. Is like sometimes a traffic light goes for too long,
Hmm.
or it should have been like a roundabout or something,
Yeah.
right? But it's like, well, at least it's there. It's better than nothing, right? So
Yeah.
I'm not overly upset about anything. I think it's gonna be a net positive for the industry.
Yeah, sometimes you have to, cause an accident before you realize that something needs to be changed. But everything kind of has to
Exactly.
start somewhere. And altogether, looking forward to hearing on that Clarity Act, and hopefully it will indeed pass. Because yeah, I mean, any quick comments there? What if it doesn't pass? What do you think about that?
Yeah, that would be upsetting. I think so many companies and teams have put so much
Yeah.
effort into getting this thing passed. So honestly, that would be upsetting. But I think mean, the Trump administration really ran on getting this stuff passed, and so it'd be tough if they didn't. But I feel pretty confident that they're going to. We've already had the Genius Act pass, and so I think we're gonna get the others too.
Cool. So before we kind of go into the last portion of our chat here, as if this whole conversation has been fun, and I'm talking about a lot of really cool topics. The last half will be, or last 10 minutes really, will be a little bit faster. I've got some questions to throw at you, but before we do that, one last kind of touch on these ETH treasury companies. What do you say to the naysayers? What do you say to the people who are saying, hey, this is just people trying to get a quick buck, bringing money on so that they can get take their piece of the pie, or hey, this goes against the whole self-custody narrative altogether. So yeah, before we go into that last piece, what do you say to the people who might be more skeptical of these ETH treasury companies?
I would say don't buy it. You don't have to buy these companies. You can just go buy ETH, right? And you can just go use Ethereum DeFi yourself. But the reality is, most people don't want to do that, right? I already talked about most capital can't do that. But also, just like there's a lot of people that don't want to go and have their own seed phrase and like have a MetaMask wallet and like go figure out how to use Uniswap and Aave, et cetera. And so like this is a nice, easy way for them to do it, and they can hold it in their retirement accounts. They can hold it wherever. And so there's the thing about crypto that I care about is like you have a choice, right?
Yeah.
So previous to crypto, you didn't have a choice. If you had put your money in a bank, you get a mortgage, you do all the things that you did through life, it all had to be done through a bank, and there was literally no other option. You wanted to trade stocks, all done through a bank. It had to be custodied by someone else. There just wasn't another option, and now we have an option. And I know there's some people who love the ethos of crypto, as I do, but you got to stop thinking black and white. We were never going to go the way of just like, okay, now everyone self custodies and we don't have custodians. Like, of course, that's not how the world was ever going to work, and probably never will work. But so you gotta be rational. You gotta understand, like, some people want self custody. Some people want someone to do it for them, and that's okay too. And I think that's what these treasury companies offer. And I think you should thank them, because if you're an ETH bull, well, these guys are going to be the thing that's going to get the most demand for ETH that you've seen in years. And so because they're bringing the people that don't want to get a MetaMask wallet, they're bringing them on board to use DeFi, and they don't even really know they're using DeFi. So that's exactly what you want. This is the DeFi thing that we've been talking about this industry for almost a decade.
Totally. And as much as we don't maybe love that, price increases tend to turn heads. But at the end of the day, having Ethereum being broadcast, on Wall Street and such like that is an opportunity for people to have their heads turned by something that's not price. And I think I mean, irrefutably is net positive for the space. Is for me, like the first turn of the head moment was last quarter of 2017 when Bitcoin first hit $20,000. And these days, I swear I still talk to old friends and new friends alike who are like, oh yeah, I think I still have some Bitcoin in my Coinbase wallet from 2017. And I think that like it's just so interesting. Again, touching on the idea of all the different industries that cryptocurrency disrupts, and how really, like you're saying, like the next big wave is really going to be financially focused. And it's like, all things come back to where they kind of started, which was the fundamental kind of value of Bitcoin and such. And I think that's rightfully so, where it's going to find its huge product market fit. And yeah, just finishing up the thread there, just I think this is the opportunity where there will be heads being turned by something, and they won't look away this time. They'll see, hey, that there are less riskier ways to get a piece of this market. And it's just so funny how opinions and beliefs change over the years. Like as adoption increases, like that thing just becomes less and less speculative. And before you know it, everybody's doing it. And you're like, literally, like when did everybody change their mind? Because last everybody was saying was cryptocurrency is just a get rich quick scheme. But now literally like, moms and pops and even grandmas and grandpas are, putting their money into Bitcoin and getting some allocation there. Kind of corny talking about grandma and grandpa, but it is what it is. But altogether, yeah, I totally agree. A net positive for the space. As we come to a close here, again, Kyle, thanks so much for your time. Really been fun, and do wish we had more to talk about, because as a founder of Impact3 and co-owner of Milk Road, I'm sure that there's just much more insight that you could bring to this conversation. So to the viewers, definitely go check that out. They're putting out content multiple times a day in lots of different forms, lots of different ways to digest. So huge shout out, huge props to you and your team for everything you're doing to bring the noise to the space. Which brings us to this next section here that just want to kind of give an opportunity for signal or noise. I'm just going to throw a few concepts at you, get a read on them from you, be as quick or as slow as you want to, but just a few quick reads here. Crypto gaming, is it overhyped or is it inevitable?
Ooh, that's funny. It's inevitable. It'll come at some point. It's gonna take a
Airdrops,
while.
signal of engagement or just farming chaos?
I hate it. I think it needs to end. I think it's the dumbest thing this industry's done. I actually think it happened because of Gary Gensler, but I think it will go away.
All right, all right. All right, so are Telegram bots real infrastructure or are they just a trend?
No, I think it's real infrastructure. I think people want to trade and do things where they already are. And so this like integration of crypto under the hood using the main apps like Robinhood or Telegram or Twitter one day probably. I think it's a good thing.
All right. Is the modular blockchain thesis actually playing out?
Yes, Robinhood was the easiest signal to show that it is.
All right, all right. Coming to the last few here. True or false, are we in DeFi Summer 2.0?
So I would say we're in a DeFi renaissance and DeFi Summer 2.0 is very much coming, yes.
All right, and last one here. Feel free to expand on this just a little bit more. But what do you think people still fail to understand about decentralization?
So this one is that not everything needs to be decentralized. And more importantly, not everything needs to be decentralized right away. You decentralize things when it has a lot of value and it impacts a lot of people. So when you start a company and it has no value and no product, it should not be decentralized. And in fact, it's dumb to make it decentralized because that decentralized by like proxy means that it's slow, right? It is more complicated, it's more complex. That's what decentralization is. So when you start a company or you start a product or anything, it should not be decentralized. It should actually be very centralized. Once that company becomes something that's important to a lot of people, then it should be decentralized. So like something like Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg should not have started that as a DAO. That would have been ridiculous and it would have never been Facebook. But today it impacts billions of people's lives. Now that should be decentralized, right? Now that makes sense because the decision that one person makes impacts literally billions of people. So I think not everything needs to be decentralized right away.
Love it. All right, Kyle. So just rolling out the red carpet for you. Where can people find you? Where should you encourage people to get involved? And what's one big takeaway that people should have from this video?
Yeah, so you can find me mainly on Twitter at Kyle Reidhead. You can see it on the screen here, but it's just my name. So find me there. If you want to check out Milk Road, that's where we share all of our investing information. Just go to milkroad.com or you can check us out on Twitter, same thing. And if you work in crypto and you need help with marketing, PR, branding, and that kind of stuff, check out Impact3. Again, you can find us on our website or on Twitter as well. And your last question was, what should people take away from this?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I would say keep an open mind. A lot of people, when they come into crypto, they get stuck on one thing and then they just like think that's the truth. And you got to understand like things change over time and things adapt. It's not black or white. And so just like keep an open mind and keep learning.
Beautiful. Kyle, thanks again so much for your time. Huge shout out once again. Thank you for all you've done to amplify this space. Now to the audience, please go follow Kyle. Go follow at Milk Road Daily on X. Literally invaluable information there. They've got a website, lots of different ways to learn, get involved. That's all we've got for you today. Thanks again, Kyle. And to the audience, we'll see you in the next one. Have a good one, Kyle. And yeah, we'll see you around.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Alrighty, bye-bye.